Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's CJ. Hopefully, everyone's having a fantastic Wednesday afternoon. Today is Wednesday, March the 30th. I want to thank you for tuning in to another CJ OMC reaction video. In case you haven't heard, there's a lot of interesting things going on in the world right now. It's pretty surreal to be living through these times and witnessing and all the chaos, the madness that's happening in the world. I encourage everyone right now should have some type of a hobby, some type of activity that they're doing, whether it's working out, whether it's reading, anything that you can to have to unplug from the constant news cycle of everything that's happening. And maybe I'm saying that because it's maybe more self-serving to me, that somebody who has to do that occasionally. So thank you for tuning in. Hari's in the house. Thank you, Hari, for joining the stream. We do have a couple of shows coming up, so I won't be going too terribly long. But there were a few things that I wanted to discuss, and I titled this reaction video "Fox News and the Neocons are all in for World War III." And primarily, the reason that I titled that was because there's some pretty alarming conversation that's happening right now. Some very eye-opening things that people are openly saying that I think we really should call in to question what their thoughts are, not necessarily understanding what an escalation would be with a world power. I think too many times we sit back and we reflect upon some of the previous military escalations, whether it was in Iraq or Syria or Afghanistan. Some of these countries where we did not have a true adversary who was capable of necessarily retaliating, striking back. And that's something that's truly missing in the conversation. Hey, Hobo, what's up? Welcome joining the stream. But before we get into some serious stuff, I think that there's some fun stuff that we should discuss, some fun things that we should take a look at real briefly. I'm not sure if, thank you, Hobo. I'm not sure if everyone heard, but, some really the best news, probably some of the best news we've heard in a long time. And I think he put out an executive memo or executive order or an executive post, whatever he does on the side now. But I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but Trump did apparently yesterday or the day before did hit a hole in one. And I mean, that's just amazing. So I thought we should share. We do have live video footage of the hole in one that Trump hit. So I'm going to bring that in. Let's play that. So here is Trump's hole in one. Hopefully I have the audio set properly so that everyone can watch this. What's up, Revolutionary Bliss? Thank you for jumping in. Troy, thanks for jumping in as well. So here we go. So breaking, you're going to watch us, catch us here. And this is live, or not live, but this is recording of Trump's hole in one yesterday. So here we go.
There is one there. Oh, God. Oh, wow. How about the way it went in? Could have been over the back of the green. Might be the biggest bounce I've ever seen go into the hole out for the.
Oh my gosh, isn't that awesome? Let's watch it again. That's so awesome. Let's watch it again.
There is one there. Oh, God. Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, but we have to take time to laugh. We have to do those things, and whoever put that together, that is just awesome. By the way, did everyone hear the audio to that as I was playing that video? Because that's going to be important for the next videos I want to play for everyone and discuss. So hopefully, if someone could just give me a 5x5 thumbs up, whatever you need to do to let me know the audio is fine. You could do that a whole 18, of course. That's right. That's right, Revolutionary Bliss. Yeah, so another thing that, getting away of a little bit of fun there, but another topic, loud and clear, cool. Thank you, Hobo. So another topic that I want to jump into, and I've covered this before, but it's still just a constant feed. If you go through and you just do a hashtag, like in Twitter, hashtag Hunter Biden laptop. Right now, this is forefront of everyone's talking about it. Everyone's, this is it. The deep state's going down, Hunter's going down. And I shared with you my thoughts on this and how this works. Velas has alluded to this many times, how they use this information, they gather this intelligence to hold our politicians accountable. And my thought process and my theory is this, is that they're strictly leveraging and utilizing the laptop theory to get it into the news cycle as leverage, because Biden is not doing some of the things that they want him to do. I really think that they're looking to push him into escalating the events. They still need him to get on cue, whether they're giving him note cards on what to say, and I think he goes off cuff sometimes and says some things that obviously we know that are not correct. But I think that they're trying to push him. They're really trying to say, hey, you know what? You did not give them the fighter jets. We did not do some of the things that we need you to do to get this escalating to the volume that we needed to do, what we needed to. Now, is it fun? Is it exciting to watch and listen, and the theatrics that are involved with it? Absolutely it is. I tune in and I watch and I read. But again, I think that these are tactics that are being deployed by the deep state, leveraging the neocons, leveraging several people and actors to really attempt to persuade and push this administration into escalating and getting like a no-fly zone. These things that they keep pushing for, the neocons keep pushing for, to get to this war to the state that they want it. So I'm going to play a bit of this. This was very interesting, and this was hard to decide whether this was theatrics or just strictly someone that was like, hey, let's get this on the record. And I don't think this has ever happened before. But yesterday, Matt Gaetz, who was, who has been, really pushing this topics. Yesterday, he met with one of the FBI chief forensics as it relates to cyber security, cyber crime. And in this conversation, I forwarded it quite a bit. Throughout the conversation, he really, pushes the needle and says, hey, where is Hunter Biden's laptop? Where is the investigation taking place right now? This spokesperson for the FBI was very adamant, kept saying, hey, that's not the scope of what we're looking at today. This isn't the scope of why you've called me here today. I've called here to give an overview. Matt stuck to his guns and said, hey, well, don't you think that his laptop should be of concern? What if it was hacked? What if those private keys to the laptop are out? What if there's an email server that potentially has been compromised? What if it's a matter of national security where, Biden is compromised at this point? And I think that those are legitimate questions, right? There's no doubt about that. So this is what took place at the end of his questioning of the FBI special cybersecurity director, I believe was his title. So here we go. So let's play this. This is very interesting to watch.
If there are passwords, if there are business deals, if there are references to things that could harm our country, like you can't even sit here right now and say that that there's not a point of vulnerability. Maybe there are other crimes, maybe there are tax issues or whatever, but as it relates to is the first family sufficient cyber infrastructure to protect? You don't even know if they're compromised. Tell you what, Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record of this committee the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, which I'm in possession of.
I'm not.
There's no objection to that.
Nadler doesn't know what to do. He's up there like, what the fuck do we do now?
So I can't say no objection.
Did he say I can't say no or something like that?
I've never had.
I will object pending further investigation.
And what's the basis of that objection?
It's a unanimous consent request, and I object pending.
Very well, I have a subsequent question. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the receipt.
It may very well be
from the Mac shop.
It may very well be entered into the record after we look at it further.
Very well, Mr. Chairman, I have a subsequent unanimous consent.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the receipt from the Department of Justice.
Mr. Chairman, this is Ms.
to the
Demings.
Mac shop.
Am I next, or
Without objection, gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After a consultation with majority staff, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record of this committee content from, files from, and copies from the Hunter Biden laptop.
Without objection.
Thank you. Yield back.
Wow. What's everyone's thoughts on that? Like, am I wrong to be thinking the way that I am, that this just theatrics, they're going to use it for leverage? Alan's in the house. What's up, Alan? If you guys in the chat room, again, it's great theatrics, and don't get me wrong. Like if we were to see Hunter Biden go down, and Joe, in regards to the criminality of Burisma, in regards to all the money laundering that took place, I'd love to see that. But I just, in today's date of age of Velas is in the house. What's up, Velas? In today's day and age of criminality and the culture of corruption that we have in Washington, D.C., I just don't see it taking place. I think it's being used for leverage. It's being used to really influence this administration to think differently. I guarantee you today this, like if Biden was today to go on national television and say, hey, we've decided we're going to put a no-fly zone over Ukraine. We're going to be, putting these things in. I guarantee you that this whole Hunter Biden thing would go away. I guarantee it would. Look at the situation with the server, right? Look at the FBI and how they had the entire contents of the server, and they knew that it was bleach wash or whitewash, whatever you want to call it, bleach bit, what they used to clean the hard drives, but they still had copies of it because all that stuff is captured by the NSA. So they all had it. Where did that go? They had the FBI investigating it. So you cannot have a criminal element of our government looking at another criminal element and coming out with a great conclusion. I just don't see it happen. So I'm listening to it. It's fun. It's interesting. It'd probably be, great for a Netflix or a movie in the future, but yet I just don't see it happening. I just don't. We have someone that's joining the conversation. Revolutionary Bliss is jumping in to add to what I'm thinking, what I'm saying. And if it's a different topic, that's perfectly fine. So I want to bring her in and see what her thoughts are on the entire Hunter Biden server or email gate and everything. So welcome, Rev Bliss.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, there's so much to say on this. First, I heard on the Dilly Show just now that Biden's going in for his 4th booster.
Right. I heard that too. Correct.
So I'm curious, are they just going to relieve him of his duties now?
That'd be scary. I guarantee you. Someone type in there, what is it? Is it the Article 25 that they can deem a sitting president not competent to serve?
And that's my concern right now, is that they're utilizing their own tactics on their own, right? And they're playing a lot of people in my mind to sign on for this whole red wave, this I just have a high doubt on anybody in office right now because of all the politicking and the words that have been just thrown away by Republicans. And the Democrats, they act on their stuff much quicker than Republicans. They talk a lot. They're like, we're going to do this and let's sign up this people to talk more about it. So I just have my. That's
a great point, Bliss. And many could argue that a lot of the hesitancy, a lot of the laying back and doing absolutely nothing at this point is because the Republicans, for the most part, are watching the Democrats fall on their own dagger as they head towards the midterms. They're counting on the people pushing back on everything from the social programs to education. They're counting on that happening. So therefore, the GOP is really relying on the Democrats to die of a self-inflicted wound, which potentially
and they're all dirty
happen.
though. And
right, absolutely.
Not to cut you off, CJ. There is, in my opinion, only, and I know nothing. Let's validate that. All of them are dirty. If they're in politics currently, having been elected by a Dominion machine, no matter how much they feel they were elected, they weren't. They were injected. And no matter how much they feel that they have fought the good fight, they haven't. Because look where we're at.
Yep. No, it's a valid point. And Bliss, and Bliss, that's where that I've arrived as well. I don't think that you're alone. I didn't coin the phrase. I think I heard it from Joe Rogan where he says I'm politically homeless at this point, because right now I don't really support either political party. I'm not connected to it. However, it's the current system that we're dealing with and we're managing. And one thing that, Bliss, is part of my frustration is part of dealing with Ukraine is exactly what you said, that this is being so politicized at this point, that people are trying to leverage this so for political gain, like outing Joe Biden or outing the Democratic Party, versus looking at humanity, looking at the bigger whole to say, there's some people, think of the refugees, think of the kids, think of the mothers that are having to exit and leave portions of the Ukraine. And why? Because it's done for very selfish reasons. And it's very disheartening. It disheartens me enough to say it disappoints me to call myself an American because of the actions that we see these people doing in Washington, D.C. However, I separate myself from that because I feel that no longer Washington, D.C. aligns around the American people and properly represents the American people. And on a global scale, that's not right. Yeah.
I would take it a step further and say we are countryless right now. That not only do we not have leaders, but we don't even have a country that we can rely upon to stand on based upon our leaders and how they decimated us from the inside out. And with Ukraine, it's the equivalent of having stage 4 cancer in your bones you never knew you had. You're done. It's been done with Ukraine. They were decimated from the inside. The reason we're seeing it now in the fight is because it's their battle they want to keep under guard, and they're losing that guard. They're losing their walls. How we go forward here is the question, because honestly, it goes back to Biden and him going to get his 4th booster, which I think we've all been touched by the harm of what they're trying to do to us here. What I'm not saying is
but that's a scary thought as well, right? That's a very scary thought as well. That, what does that do? Does that put, basically Kamala as president and Nancy Pelosi as vice president? Is that what takes place? Or I don't even know.
I say what's good for the goose is good for the gander. She needs to go in there and get her 4th also right next to him.
Line them up. Do it right now. Go get it. Yeah. I definitely see that element. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I was
gonna say it's gonna get very interesting as we head to 2024 and what happens with that cycle of it. And as I've stated numerous times, that we can already see the picture. We can already see the scenario that's being played out. It's like a Hollywood movie, right? It's like Rocky 2. It's like either it's Trump versus Biden 2 and the great comeback, or it's God forbid, but Hillary versus Trump versus 2.0, and getting the people just very energetic and excited. And I said that's one thing. And I'm gonna have a show. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna have a show one night, and I think it's gonna be titled Trump, Hero or Zero, and allow for proponents, people who adamantly support Trump, and likewise the people who don't, and to debate out, perfectly map this out, because I get tired of the political rhetoric. We're saying, well, Trump never had a war whenever he was here, and this would have never happened if Trump was in charge. That's just so politically convenient for them to make broad statements like that with having.
I have so much to say there, CJ.
Go ahead, go for it.
I'm gonna hold it for that show. You're gonna hold it for
that show. Yeah. We don't want to get too far off the topic here, but I really appreciate. Bliss, before we close, I know that you're very active in the Discord, the Rogue Discord server, so thank you for that. Anything else that you'd like to say before I continue the show? No, and I'm not cutting you off at all.
Oh no, cut me off. We're good. I appreciate everything you're doing here and allowing people to come on and just kind of, that's how you open the minds, like share thought process.
Yeah, and I applaud you. Yeah, good.
No, go ahead.
I applaud you for coming on, because I know that it's not comfortable. It took me a long time. I'll never forget that first time that I was just mostly doing the work for V in the background, and then he was getting bored of going solo and not really, it's kind of open air when you're sitting there talking to yourself. It's like, why don't you come on, bro? Why don't you come on, say something? I'm like, I don't know if I want to. but now I've arrived. it's now that it arrived and it's here. So again, get people more. I applaud your efforts to come on. Get other people to say, well, I can jump on. I can do something like that, and it can be with or without a cam. It doesn't. I don't mind whichever. The point is that we need to get more people contributing and adding to the conversation, because I'll be the first to tell you that I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers, and I don't want to pretend that I do. However, I know that whenever I do listen to a difference in opinion, even if it's conflicting of something that maybe I don't believe in, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to listen and come back and say, well, here's my standpoint, but I will not join the cancel culture or the people who are out to, just completely deplatform people, because, we've learned enough from that, and hence the reason of why we are in the situation that we're in. And, watching the tech giants contribute to that, that's really hindered a part of our republic as far as being able to learn and grow and openly debate things. We've lost that ability for whatever reason. We've lost that ability to debate, to move things forward. And at the end of the day, we may agree to disagree, and that's okay. But let's be mature about it to say, okay, well, we're on opposite spectrum to this. We're not going to be able to come to a conclusion. Is there a path forward or not? And that ties right into good.
I almost think that this is it's a reactionary cause of what we've been dealing with for so long, just trying to speak truth. So we've been indoctrinated by those that wanted to cancel us, and so we became the cancelers also, instead of realizing, yeah, that's just not how we're going to win any war. You can't win a war battling from one side. There's always going to be an out. So I think everybody it's a growth process. So
right.
I think we're all learning.
And Bliss, real quick, I see some people asking, like, how did you know to jump on? Well, I put the link to, I'm gonna go ahead and remove you for now real quick, Bliss. I put the link specifically to the StreamYard, the live streaming software that I use. I put that in the video description, so you can see that in whatever platform that you're listening to. I take that back, and a few that you want. If you're on Twitch, Float, you may not see the link to jump in to join the conversation. But it is posted in the description of the video. So Bliss, I want to thank you for jumping on, and I want to move the conversation forward, and that is specifically talking about the neocons. And there was a very troubling conversation to me. Like, I nearly almost lost sleep because of it, and I realized, like, holy cow, what in the world is this guy saying? And I know many of you probably caught this conversation as well. So I want to jump into this conversation next. And as you know, I'm struggling right now. As an American, I'm really struggling to identify, where is the anti-war party? Where are the people who are talking about de-escalation? Where are the people that are talking about peace? And I can't find that nowadays, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. I can't find that voice that's advocating for that. I think the last voice who specifically, I think, was very level-headed, the non-aggression principle, was Rand Paul. Tulsi Gabbard, I know many of you will know she was with the CFR and she's compromised. We think that they're setting her up to be president in the future, yada, 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 which, I'm not going to say that that's not true. It very well could be. But I also know, looking at her military record and her, I believe, 3 or 4 tours that she's done in Iraq, I don't see a lot of other people who have done that. I see mostly them being Rhodes Scholars, people coming through academia, people, Bill Clinton. You take a look at, every one of them, right? They went through Harvard, Yale, these programs where they're set up and they're deemed and identified early to be set up for some type of political position in the future. Skulls and bones, all those kind of fun things. But so Tulsi has been very outspoken about the aggression and very concerned about the outcome, where people who are saying a lot of things without thinking of the ramifications of the actions. One of those is being the no-fly zone. One of those is saying, hey, the United States should give Ukraine the arms, the weapons. Let's give them whatever they need to defend themselves. Let's establish that no-fly zone without thinking of the consequence. About thinking, well, what does that do? That literally, that equivalently puts us at a direct war in World War III, financially, economically. We're already in that stage of it. So that's the danger. And so listen to this conversation that Sean Hannity had with Tulsi Gabbard. He attempts to call it out for, but I was just very alarmed at his action and his words. And I think that this needs to gain a lot of traction, people to understand what Fox News is doing to promote war in the Ukraine. So here we go. Let me add this to the stream. Every once in a while I forget to do this, so let me add it to the stream. I'll do it with you guys. I know that gets a little bit difficult to see there. And this is their conversation.
Hawaii Congresswoman, current Lieutenant Colonel in the Army Reserves, Tulsi Gabbard, as well as Tulsi. Let me play a quote of you on Jesse's show, and I want to ask you about it.
Central to that humility, Jesse, is first and foremost recognizing you're not God. You are not in control. And if you try to pretend that you are, what will result, even with good intentions, what will result, unfortunately, is more suffering, more hardship for the people in the world that supposedly he's trying to save.
So I am a supporter, Tulsi, of the Reagan doctrine and the Trump doctrine. Reagan doctrine is providing Stinger missiles to the Mujahideen when the Soviets invaded in the 80s. They were successful. They pushed the Soviets out. Supporting the Nicaraguan freedom-fighting Contras over the Sandinistas and Daniel Ortega. I'm also a supporter of the Trump doctrine, which is bomb the living hell out of people. Don't put an American boot on the ground, maybe some Intel boots there, but that's about it.
So that's his thought process. Bomb the living hell out of people. Innocent people, innocent lives. Gosh, I think he should be taken off air. I mean, it's ridiculous, his comments of saying that bomb the hell out of people. Yeah, what is it worth? The 500,000 people, the innocent people that died in Iraq. Just, I'm sorry, but this irks me and really pisses me off when I hear these assholes talk like this. I would love to. He should be the first to strap up. You know, if you're so brave and bold, but behind your microphone, then you go. You go to Ukraine. You be the first to get in line to do it, but you're not, because you're a wimp. You're here we go. Let's just play this. I'm sorry to get emotional on this. Here we go.
And with pinpoint accuracy, push buttons from all over the United States, and we'll hit any target we want, and we'll blow the caliphate out of existence. Trump did it. Soleimani off of tarmac, al-Baghdadi and associates, and the al-Qaeda leader in Yemen. It sounds to me like you don't believe in that. We're not putting one American boot on the ground, and my argument would be, if Putin is successful here, God only knows where his territorial ambitions will take him next.
Yeah, Sean, you know, all the things that you just talked about and explained there, frankly, are tactics. Those are tactics to accomplish what? And the what is really the central question here that needs to be answered is, what is our objective? What is the objective of the United States? What actions and objective best serves the interest of the American people? That's the question. That's the thing that President Biden and his administration has failed to detail, outline, or even identify. And it's frankly why we're seeing how he's at NATO right now, trying to clean up the mess that he made with these food shortages and all these things coming around as a result of the sanctions policies that he put in place. So anytime you look at so many of our foreign policy disasters in the past, we see they have come about because our leaders have failed to outline what is it exactly we are trying to achieve, and how does it best serve the interests of the American people? Will it make our lives better? Will it improve them, or will it actually make it worse? And I think that's really the central question that our president of this country needs to answer.
You know, does the world, we can't be the world's policeman. You and I agree on that part. We can't.
Yes.
But however, we are a nation that has a conscience and a soul and a belief in natural law that rights come from God, not from government. So I think you agree with that part. And
Yes.
when you see entire cities like Mariupol decimated, hospitals bombed out, maternity hospitals, schools bombed out, indiscriminate bombing of innocent men, women, and children, and you see women and children shot dead, bombed out in the streets and the cities of Ukraine, does America at least have a moral obligation to assist a country that's willing to fight for itself?
I'm sorry, I just can't. I can't. Whenever he says, does the U.S. have a moral obligation? Sean, who the hell are we as a country to call into question the moral obligation? If I was Tulsi, I would have specifically said, Sean, can you give me an example of the past 25 to 30 years? Did we have a moral obligation in Iraq to kill 500,000 innocent Iraqi women and children? Sean, did we have an obligation in Yemen to provide support to the Saudis in their endless war in Yemen, where I believe it's estimated that probably close to 500,000, probably even 750,000 people have died because of starvation, because of lack of water, and the United States is providing weapons and arms and air support? How dare you, Sean? How dare you call into question the moral authority to advocate for war like you do, you asshole? I'm pissed. I'm pissed. This is totally like, I don't know how Tulsi kept her composure, because if that was me, I would not have been able to do that. I would have said, listen, give me an example. Give me an example of U.S. foreign policy where we were not the policemen of the world, that we intervene. Give me one success. Is it Iraq? Is it Afghanistan? Is it Syria? Somebody mentioned Africa as well. The Libya. Give me the Libya. Give me one example, Sean, of where it's worked, of what you're advocating for, Sean, because I don't understand it. I don't. Help me as an American understand exactly what the hell you're saying. That we have a moral obligation to question other people and their actions. And you know what? I'm going to go there because I'm tired of it. I'm tired of people that are sitting there saying, well, we're not defending the actions of Putin, and and if you don't condemn him for doing so, all right, listen. At some point, there's a line in the sand that's completely drawn. There's a line of sand that you don't do. We witnessed the other day with, people talking bad about other people's family members. There's a certain line, because that person on the other side that you're dealing with may not be a person that's just a person of words. They may take actions, and behind every action, there's a consequence that takes place. And that's what we're witnessing. So we're witnessing a comedian turned president who attended to talk tough, who said, you know what, we think that Ukraine needs to go nuclear. We need to do these things. There's a point where, you know what, that talk crosses a line, and then there's actions and there's consequences. And we were caught off guard. We were not ready for those actions because we thought, you know what, it's not going to happen. It's not going to take place. But not every person is just a person of words. And you got to be very, very careful about who you point out, how much you push, because they may pretend to be soft-spoken. They may pretend to be very patient, and that's fine. But at some point, people lose patience. And we know throughout history, some of the smartest people that have done the craziest things, right? Like, because they're capable of that. And so for Hannity to come out and say there's a consciousness, there's a reason that why, it's just completely. And by the way, I'm discussing the video. Interesting thing, I did the reaction video to Joe Rogan's video, and they flagged it. They blocked it. YouTube did, because he has some company, Rogan has some company that monitors the web for his content, and they flagged it for a copyright. And so I tagged it Twitter. I'm like, hey, Rogan, this company that you use, they say they own the rights to your content. I don't think that's accurate. And it was a reaction video. It's covered under fair use. So I tagged Rogan and I tagged the company that did it, and needless to say, they released it from YouTube and removed their copyright infringement upon it. So I thought that was kind of cool that took place. So for Fox News, we're discussing your video. It's covered under fair use. I want to make that perfectly clear that we're discussing your content. We're just not replaying it. So let's continue this ridiculous conversation that Hannity had with Tulsi Gabbard.
To defend their natural rights, because that's what Reagan called the Reagan Doctrine.
The role that we have, and that frankly President Biden should have carried out from the get-go in this, and I've talked about this with you before, is doing all that we can to try to prevent this tragic war from happening in the first place. Try to prevent.
I agree with that, but I'm looking at where we are now.
Lives from being lost.
But what you see with your own eyes. But what you see with your own eyes and what we're showing every night, is there a moral obligation, and is it wise and strategically beneficial to the world, and including the United States, to stop this megalomaniac murdering thug right here, right now, with the Ukrainians willing to fight if they only have the weapons?
We have to look at the world as it exists in reality, not the world that we wish existed.
You're ducking.
And it is a
Tulsi,
cruelty.
I'm asking a real question here.
No, I'm trying to answer your question. The cruelty
Okay.
is to try to pretend to the Ukrainian people that they are going to win in a war against a nuclear-armed country that is out-equipped, that has stronger equipment, more tanks, more bombs, more planes, more people, more everything in Russia. It's just not realistic. So what should have been done from the beginning is the same thing that needs to be done now, which is a negotiated outcome.
Wait a minute. Give them nothing because Russia has nukes and they might use them. That's your answer?
We've provided a tremendous amount of support to Ukraine, not only now but over the years, so that they have the ability to defend themselves. And the Ukrainian
should
military
we give them the weapons so they can? You're not answering. Should we give them the weapons to win the war? If they're doing a great job, everybody acknowledges that. Should we give them all, and Europe too, give them the weapons if they're willing to fight for their country?
They can't win this war, Sean. This is the real world that we live in. It is not, it's not strategically possible to think that Ukraine is going to beat Russia. If you look at it, and then
so
it
what
also
you're
is the
saying
question,
is
what does winning
you
look
fear
like?
Vladimir
What does winning look
Putin.
like?
You're saying you fear Vladimir Putin would use a nuke. If he uses a nuke, the radiation fallout will impact NATO countries. That triggers Article 5. Do you believe in Article 5 of the NATO agreement?
I think the most responsible thing that our leaders, the United States, leaders of NATO, Ukraine, and Russia need to do right now is look at what the reality is that we're facing on the ground and the reality that the world is facing, and come together to be able to negotiate an outcome to this.
Okay, Putin doesn't want to negotiate. Clearly doesn't want to negotiate. There's been many attempts at negotiation. So when you see images of dead women and children,
I'm not aware
and when you see
Zelensky
neighborhoods
sitting down
blown
with
out,
Putin yet.
hang on, you do not think we should provide them the weapons to defend themselves? I just want to know yes or no.
You're missing my point here, Sean, which is we've got to know what we're trying to accomplish, which is an end to this war. It is cruel to make the Ukrainian people believe that somehow they are going to win this war by prolonging it. And that's what you're talking about here. It would prolong this war, prolong the suffering, and end up causing more lives lost in the end.
If Vladimir Putin wanted to negotiate, he would have done it a long time ago. He's not willing to. And if he wants to use chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons, he's got enough.
I can't. I can't. I mean, what a national embarrassment. What a national embarrassment to be listening to a national U.S. correspondent be so illiterate and uneducated in regards to the events unfolding with Ukraine. I struggled to understand what he was saying, because in essence, what he's saying and what I wish that Tulsi would have said to him is that, Sean, if we give Ukraine the offensive weapons necessary to defend yourselves, and I agree with Tulsi's assessment, this is a war that Ukraine cannot win. They simply cannot. Many people, I'm not going to go too far off par on this, but they cannot win this war. So in essence, what he's saying is that give them all weapons, regardless of defensive, offensive weapons. And Tulsi should have said, now, Sean, if we give them the offensive weapons, does that put us directly at war with Russia? I wish she would have asked him that question. And Sean, are you willing to potentially maybe watch your wife and your kids die in an inferno of a nuclear weapon with you watching literally them die, Sean? Is that what you want? Do you want a nuclear exchange with a nuclear superpower? Is that what you're really advocating for, Sean? Because I don't see it, Sean. I don't see it. And And again, just, for him to keep pushing that needle and pushing that volume of saying that, you know what, they can win. If we give them more weapons, he can do it. And again, I just don't see that dilemma. I do not see any people thinking about what the long-term consequences of this are. They're not willing to discuss it. So are we willing to lose 250, 500,000 people in the United States due to a nuclear exchange with Russia? Is Ukraine the hill that we're gonna die on? I just really struggle with that. I really do. So let's finish up this their conversation.
Know that his entire country is going to be blown off the face of the earth. I pray to God we never get to that point, but that's always been a threat. And it remains a threat here, and we can't cower in fear based on the fact that we've had mutually assured destruction pretty much for all a lifetime. But I appreciate you being on. Good.
Wow. What a conversation. I had a few other videos, queued up. We'll jump into this because here's another neocon, and it's amazing how these neocons, jump into the conversation. So here's Marco Rubio talking all big and bad, like he's going to make a difference and do something. I'll tell you what, if Rubio's willing to go to fight in Ukraine, I will match him. If he straps up and he's ready to go, I'll go with him. And you guys can tag Rubio on this. You can share with me, but let's go, brother. If you think that you're big and bad and you're ready to go do things, let's go. I'll go with you. I know you won't, because you want to talk like a Mike. You're a big bad person, but you're not. You're not. You're just an actor in this. You're just following the propaganda of the intelligence agencies. And so let's bring this into conversation right now. Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio, he is the vice chairman of the Select Committee on Intelligence. And Senator, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Maria. I appreciate it.
So a couple of questions, Senator. On the one hand, how would you assess the response? Is there any red line? We watch death and destruction every day now for the last month. And what about the use of chemical weapons? Is the intelligence that you've seen corresponding that, in fact, there are chemical weapons? Is that reliable?
Well, let me talk about a couple things. The first is that the red line that we know of for sure is NATO. We have a commitment in NATO. We've made it. It's an old commitment. It's an existing commitment. And if any NATO nation comes under attack and invokes Article 5, the United States has an obligation that it will meet to join those nations in taking on the aggressor. And if that's Russia, that's what's going to happen. And that's a pretty clear red line, and one that has existed for a very long time and predates this president. And it's one I believe in and should continue. I think the likeliest thing you're going to see from Putin is trying to use chemical or biological weapons, for that matter, but doing it in a way that makes it look like someone else did it. So that's his history. For example, when chemical weapons were deployed in Syria, clearly Assad was behind it. But he spent weeks sort of building up this notion that somehow the rebels and the opposition to Assad were the ones that were going to use chemical weapons and did. And so my feeling is that that's exactly the kind of thing he would try to do here. I don't think he would himself admit that he's using these chemical weapons. I think he would want to blame that on Ukraine or NATO and say that it was them who did it. I think
I'm going to pause it right there because I think there's an important thing to discuss, and that is the use of chemical and biological weapons. Strategically at this point, and I'm not an expert. I've never served in the military. I'm not going to pretend that I have. But, I think I have one thing. It's called common sense. I think that it's pretty common sense to understand that, like, it makes no sense for Putin at this point to even think about using chemical weapons. What is that going to do? He's already winning the war. All that's going to do is push your adversaries even more and bring them into the war and expand things. So why would he do that? It's right there on the border with Russia. Why would he run the risk of doing that? It doesn't make strategically any sense to do that. And I'm borrowing this. I can't remember who I heard it from, but it makes perfect sense. I think that's why in the U.S. media that we're hearing such a hard narrative being pushed in our face that Russia's losing this war. That several, we hear in the news constantly that there are several U.S. generals Russian generals that have been killed and captured, and the Russian military is going without food and water, and they're surrendering, they're walking up and surrendering. They're attempting to put this narrative that together, that Russia's losing this war so bad that Putin has no choice but to utilize these type of weapons, chemical and biological weapons. That's what they're attempting to do. And then what do? You backfill that by getting people like Marco Rubio to come on TV to talk about biological chemical weapons, when they would be used, why would they be used, when we know completely that Trump was fooled in Syria. Bashir Assad did not use chemical weapons against his own people. We all know those white helmets. There was an investigation in regards to that whole thing in Ukraine. The only reason that Trump did it, that he struck there in Syria, was because his daughter went crying into his office, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, they can't do that to kids in Syria. And Daddy, you got to do something, Daddy. So please, Daddy, do something." Okay, and Trump was stupid enough to take action, right? Even though it was completely a false flag event that took place. So again, we're seeing this narrative pushed again in regards to the use of these types of weapons. So again, Rubio is being out in the forefront. He's been on across, various news outlets discussing the use of chemical weapons, discussing these same talking points time and time again. And it's something that we very well could be mindful of, that this potential of the use of that, we don't want it to happen, but they very well could. And it's the use of their own agenda. I have several other videos that I have lined up. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. But I did want to touch base real quick on China, that if you watch the mainstream news media, we're beginning to see a lot of conversation in regards to Taiwan, and a lot of neocons, people that are saying that, hey, we need to react now. We need to learn from our mistakes of the things with Ukraine. We need to go ahead and start deploying offensive and defensive weapons to Taiwan. We know that, quote unquote, there was this leaked memo that said that China was prepared to invade Taiwan this fall after this whole thing took place with Ukraine. So they're already kind of pointing this narrative. And for the United States to think that we could be like confrontational in two theaters in potentially Ukraine and then Taiwan. I mean, my gosh, like what are these crazy people thinking? What are these crazy people thinking? But I don't want to get too far apart because I don't have time today to jump into the entire conversation. Many of the people that again, Fox News has been promoting, getting out there and talking about, whether here, I'll just show them on screen real quick, because these are ones I was going to play. Levin, he's one of the main architects. He's a huge neocon. He's like, we need to push trying to deliver these wars, because here's what we need to do, and we need to arm and learn from these mistakes and do these things. Same thing with this, that with Laura Ingraham had this quote unquote whistleblower who claims that China planned the invasion of Taiwan this fall, and this is going to take place. So they're already starting to put this narrative where people are talking about, hey, we need to begin these things now because we need to learn from Ukraine. But this video that I wanted to play next is Pierce. He joined the 5 here recently, and this is more of like some common sense thing that I think that we should all pause and ask ourselves. And I hope that this resonates with the people that are listening to this live, people that are listening to the replay, to share this conversation, because I think he nails it. He nails it in terms of an obligation that we have for humanity. So let's play this. Let me make sure I got the audio break in. I apologize, the screen goes crazy when I do it, but I don't want to have to constantly look over to my other monitor, and I'm too lazy to move my entire cadenza and my stuff around my desk to put 2 screens on the same spot. So here is this video, and I think this makes a lot of sense. So let's play this.
Be hopeful that these talks are ongoing.
Can I ask one difficult question? Because I know this flies against the general narrative, but at what point is the red line for our morality,
right?
The West. At what point do we watch maternity hospitals being bombed, refugees being targeted and murdered on the way out as they try and escape, Americans in lines for bread because they're starving being gunned down, Holocaust survivors being incinerated in their homes, as happened last week? What is our red line? Because we know what Hitler's was, and we know when we stood up to him. I just look at what's going on, and I keep reading that Putin's losing, this is all going badly, Ukraine are winning. I don't believe any of that. I think Putin is doing exactly what he set out to do. He's ruthless. He's barbaric. He's getting more ruthless and more barbaric. And we're all sitting back, hiding behind, well, he hasn't attacked a NATO country. But I bet if he prevails in Ukraine and attacks a NATO country, what's he going to say? He's going to say, if you come after me, I'll use my nukes. And we're going to face the same moral quandary of a guy taking nuclear armament as a protective shield to genocide. And I
Okay, so reverse that thought process a little bit, because where the real moral dilemma is this, in regards to what Pierce says. So he starts out talking about where his heart was going, but then he realizes that he's on Fox News and he has to flip to the deep state. Here's the moral dilemma that we face as a country, and why I said this needs to resonate with everyone. Are we willing, as a country, as a populace, to allow, our government to basically send the Ukrainian people to their death? Are we willing to allow to create another, one of the largest refugee crises that we created? This is the second in my lifetime that we've created, or maybe even the third. Syria, we created the humanitarian crisis there. And in essence, we created this as well because we're continuing to lead these people, giving them false hope that we're going to be there to back them and do all these great things, and we're letting them down. So that's where, to me, where the line in the sand comes, is that are we willing to watch innocent Ukrainian women, children die because of our arrogance to think that we can allow these people? We're basically, everyone knows that we're utilizing Ukraine right now as a proxy war. Everyone heard it in Biden's last conversation when he said the end goal is to out Putin, to allow him to continue serving, as president of Russia. That's the end goal. So we're basically leveraging, and we're willing to duplicate the same thing that we did in Iraq. We're willing to watch 500,000, 1 million people innocently die because of our own self-interest and our own self-greed. And we cannot allow that to happen. So this is CJ delivering another reaction video. We're going live at 2 p.m. on Rogue with Matthew Arrett, followed by Cuss with Gus at 3 p.m. So make sure you tune in there. Also, do me a favor. If you're tuning in here, you're probably listening in on my YouTube channel, which is CJOMC. We're going to do some simulcasts, which we had one great with Matthew Arrett in the Canadian Patriot Review this past weekend. We're also doing some interviews as well as reaction videos. So, and do me a favor, again, hit that subscribe button to my YouTube channel. You can follow my work, again, a couple places. At Twitter, which is at producer CJ1. All of you are very familiar with my work over with V at Rogue News, as well as Paul and Ken Shortgun Jr. at the Gadfly. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. Peace, love, and I will be back real soon. Be safe, everyone. Thank you.